Hi, this is Bob Salley from Source Point Press, and you're listening to This Freakin' Show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another episode of This Freakin' Show. Weekly podcast with a little bit of something and a whole lot of nothing. I'm your host, Travis T. And alongside me this evening, as always,
Awkward Colin!
And Geekcast Joe.
and this episode of This Freakin' Show is brought to you by Firepit Bar and Grill of Peotone, Illinois. If you're looking for a down-home country restaurant that offers a great beer and a delicious burger for $7.99 every Monday and Wednesday, then you must stop at Firepit Bar and Grill of Peotone. You can find them on Facebook at Firepit Bar or at the website firepitbar.com. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
I'm all right.
Nice. That's good to hear. Colin, I know how your weekend was because we got to spend it together hanging out with Derek. But how was your weekend, Joey? What did you do?
It was good. I didn't do a whole lot of anything. My plans fell through just in time for me to miss out on joining you guys for your plans.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah.
I wish you were there, man. We had a lot of fun.
It looked like
Yeah.
it. Your snaps looked snappy.
Yeah. We bar hopped a good portion. Nah, I guess not a good portion, but we bar hopped like Champaign Urbana, so that was kind of fun.
Nice.
We found like a distant cousin of Second Street Saloon, so it was really awesome to see that. It's
Cousin.
yeah, I mean very similar but not exactly the same. It was also because like it was a country bar, but it like I guess it's one of those bars that's like very hit and miss on like how many people are in there. Like when we went in there, like people came and went, but there was like no more than like 5 other people in that bar at once. And like their jukebox was really just a computer you could just pick music from for free.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun. Oh god, Colin, what were the bars we went to? We went to Clark. Went to Bunny.
Bunnies. The bar he's referring to as the second cousin is called the Rose Bowl.
Nice.
Yeah,
The Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Home of country music.
That's literally what their sign says. Rose Bowl, home of country music.
I
And
feel like Nashville as a city would disagree, but go on.
this is like the one part of Urbana that like if you walked into, you would think you're in Nashville.
Nice.
What was the Iron one? I can't remember the name of that one.
The Iron Post.
The Iron Post. That was one we went to go see that band at. It was a lot of fun. Joey, I'm sorry you missed out on it.
Nice. Yeah. But that's all right.
I mean, the band that was playing, I think it'd be very similar to like maybe some music that you kind of like.
Yeah, probably.
Kind of like a mellow kind of thing. Like when I was talking to Derek, we kind of agreed like maybe it was very similar to like reggae, but not so much reggae. It was like I don't know. It's hard to explain because I'm not great with genres of music because everything kind of sounds just like an alternate rock kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
I know what you mean. This was
Yeah,
the band
like-
you shared on Snapchat?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. They were. I liked listening to them. I don't know. I'm with you. I have no idea what to call their style of music. Yeah, rock reggae maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, they had
reggae.
donkey reggae.
Donkey reggae.
Donkey reggae.
All right.
It was awesome. We went to Sandwich and we had some fat sandwiches. We watched that movie, The Founder, about the history of Ray Kroc with McDonald's. We realized how big of a dick Ray Kroc was.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't had an opportunity to see that movie, I would recommend watching it. It's actually pretty interesting, and it kept our attention the whole time. Like I mean, the movie went by so quick. I think it was like an hour and 40-something minutes long.
Like 2 hours.
Like it was like nearly 2 hours long. It went by so fucking quick, but like it kept your attention, and it gave you so much knowledge about the background, about the history of McDonald's itself, and literally how big of a dick Ray Kroc was.
Right. Wasn't he the guy? He bought it from the McDonald's brothers for like nothing, and then like screwed them out of a bunch of royalties, right?
He literally robbed them, like
Yeah.
literally robbed them. Because like there was like, and I like working at McDonald's, like you learn so much about the history of it, and like I kind of understood like what it was. Like when a lot of people say like the McDonald's up in Des Plaines, Illinois is like the first McDonald's, which it really not. It's the first franchise McDonald's because the first McDonald's in California,
Yeah,
San Bernardino.
San Bernardino, California. Um, but like the whole thing was, I mean, like they got to that point in the movie where the McDonald's brothers told Ray, like, I don't want you in this anymore, I want you out of this. And Ray was telling him how, like, you could sue me all you want and you'll probably win, but I'd bury you in so much court fees, court costs, that you wouldn't be able to pay him off and you'd be ruined and all this shit. Like, so he literally gave him no other choice but to sell McDonald's to him. And unfortunately, because like, Ray Kroc is the way he is and thinks like everything through, pretty much told them they couldn't put the royalty agreement, which was 1% of their profits, go to the brothers. Ray Kroc sat there and said, listen, I can't put that in the contract because the financial people who deal with all that shit won't approve this, but we'll do it on the handshake and the honor system. And once they did all that, and then Ray Kroc couldn't get the original restaurant from the brothers and everything, he decided to renege on the entire fucking thing.
Jeez.
Fucking horrible. And like it was weird because they sold it for like $2.7 million, which I think when we looked it up, it was like $22 million today.
Damn.
And at the end of the show, it kind of gives you like quick details of everything. And the royalties today for McDonald's would have been like $100 million.
$100 million per year.
Per year.
Wow.
It's one of those movies that makes you want to go, I kind of feel bad now if I go into McDonald's and eat it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like when you're eating like those chicken nuggets, like there's more than just the fact you're eating them.
Right.
You got some like moral regrets now too.
Yes.
But it was a great movie. Definitely recommend checking it out. If you're in the Champaign, Urbana area, check out the Rose Bowl or Clark, the Iron Post, and Bunny's. They're all great bars, and they have like a little thing different with each and every one of them. So amazing places. We also went to Hooters, but everyone knows Hooters.
Right. You have some naked
that was
wings.
I got the breaded traditional ones. I don't get naked.
Nice.
I like the breading. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Breading
yeah,
gives
it's
me gas. So.
good. Nice.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Sharing is caring.
Yeah, I did not know that, and now I do. Because no one's half the battle. G.I. Joe. Anyways, we have an amazing guest for everyone tonight. I don't know. I don't know how to to say anything other than that because it's a pretty awesome comic.
It is pretty neat looking.
It is pretty cool looking. But he's ready to come on. I think we're ready for him to come on. So I think we'll do what we normally do: plug our podcast, come back, and talk more with Robert Sully.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jason.
And I'm Jeff. We're from the History of Bad Ideas podcast.
You know what you're listening to right now, Jeff?
What are we listening to right now?
This freaking show.
This freaking show?
This freaking show. And when you're not listening to this freaking show, take a listen to the History of Bad Ideas.
Where we talk about sports,
movies,
and other pop culture events happening
in the world. So take a listen. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, and any other place that you find great podcasts like This Freaking Show.
This freaking show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Bob Salley from Salvagers Comics. Bob, how you doing, sir?
Doing all right. Thanks for having me on.
Good,
Yeah,
good.
of course. Welcome.
Yeah, super excited to have you on here. Really excited to know more about the comics and everything that you're involved in. So real quick, because me as a host, I'm super lazy and kind of suck at this. I kind of leave it up to the guests to kind of like give a description of who they are and stuff like that. So do you mind telling everyone a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, no worries. I'm Bob Salley. I'm the writer of Salvagers along with Shelter Division and Drexler. Working on a few short stories for anthologies, and I broke into comics by, I guess, just having writer's block and not knowing what to write. And watching my favorite sci-fi movie, Star Wars, and when you see the Death Star blow up, I just thought to myself, wouldn't it be interesting to follow a company and a crew that it was their job to clean that up and clean up space junk that's valuable. And that kind of got me out of the writer's block, where as simple as just writing down what occupations would be on this ship, a pilot, a captain, a demo guy, a tech guy. And the list actually went on and on when I first started writing it, because I wrote prose. So there was like 9 characters. There was like 9 professions on the ship. And I don't even know. I think it was just divine intervention. And one moment I just thought, this would probably make a cool comic book. So just, knowing that there's no way that you'd be able to develop 9 characters in an introduction to, series, I dumbed it down to 4 characters and gave the ship artificial intelligence. So just like, we just like real life, we just make the machines do the work and send everybody else out on their way. So so I worked on developing the characters, and my thoughts on it was, well, it's probably just you write a script, you submit it to Dark Horse Comics, they love it, they buy it off of you, and then they put artists on it and you get a load of money. Wasn't the case. Found out from just networking with other people that were doing it that the best way to break into comics was to actually do the work, find an artist, produce it yourself, and build a following. So that's what I started doing. But Facebook wasn't really a thing, so I was on Craigslist. And I know that Colin and Joe, you guys have significant others. I only assume that you've met them on Casual Encounters.
No, naturally.
Craigslist. But back then, that's what you used Craigslist for. To find a bicycle and a date. But if you really look at Craigslist, I don't even know if it's out there anymore, you could find a whole assortment of valuable things. And one was looking for artists. It didn't work out for me, so I guess it wasn't that useful. But it got the ball rolling, and it kind of got me some visual aid for my characters. And it was just a lot of, it took me 10 years to go from concept to actually getting the first 22 pages done. And it just was a lot of time. It was a lot of discouraging moments where you couldn't find an artist, and you just figured, this is impossible. You didn't have the resources that you have now, where you could talk to people on Facebook groups and get instant knowledge, where if somebody said to me, I want to break into comics, how do I do it? I could give them a 3-step process on how to do it. And, and it's easy, but back then it just seemed like it was the hardest thing to do.
Right.
So, it was discouraging, and I kept, bouncing around it. And there was times, as a writer, you would think I have this great idea, and I looked all over, and there was just nobody doing it. It wasn't done, which I think sometimes is very odd. Where, I think a lot of times, even today, I'll have an idea and I'll be like, oh, somebody's already doing it. But this was one where I was really excited about it, because it seemed like it was unique. And so I kept pursuing it. But back then, I was 26 years old and just cared about drinking and partying. Mm-hmm. So it was hard to focus on that. And then one day, my friend Wendy, who went to school with George Acevedo, she knew that I was writing a comic book, and she went to a high school reunion and ran into George Acevedo, and he talked about how he was an artist and he was looking to do a comic book. So it was just really dumb luck. And I think that most people, that's how it works out when you break in, is dumb luck that she knew me writing a comic book, and he was looking to draw a comic book. So she hooked us up, and it wasn't instant right then. He and I kind of bounced back and forth. And then once my wife told me she was pregnant, at that moment I told George, I was like, look, let's just go 100 miles an hour. Let's do this, because once I get this first issue done, I'm probably going to never do it again, because I'll have a kid and, I'll have to be a dad and work and pay bills. But, when we did it, we put it together, and I was posting it on Facebook, and it grew a bit of a fan base. And then, my wife, the supporter she is, she said, well, do the next one. And the next one we did a little faster, and the fan base kept growing, and and now it's where it is now. We're with Source Point Press, which is a publisher that I a small press publisher, but a publisher that when I met them and when I saw what they were doing, I really wanted to be a part of what they were doing. So I'm not looking to, take this to Image or IDW or Dark Horse anymore. I really want to see Source Point Press grow, and I want to, hopefully my titles can help them grow.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's really cool. Well, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. No, there's yeah. I mean,
That's
like
usually what happens when I ramble on like that. We're like, shit.
I know, but that's what's awesome because I mean, like it. So when we first started talking, like I kind of found like, and I don't know how I found you on Twitter, and I'm so glad like I happened to stumble across you somehow.
Probably I found I live on Twitter. I just kind of troll on Twitter, but I don't troll like for babes and stuff. I troll for artists and podcasters and people that I can work with, and and that's what we do here. You're helping me spread to your audience, and hopefully I'm helping you spread to my audience, and that's the beauty of the independent world. It's not just independent comics, it's independent podcasters, it's independent distributors, it's a whole independent world, and you can't just think of yourself, you have to think of each other.
Absolutely, yeah, and the thing is like so when we started talking, like, and God, I really suck at interviewing. Like, literally, like, you may think this may be a mistake after you get off this fucking interview. But yeah, no, like, because I remember finding you, and I think I found, like, because I believe you have two different Twitters, right? You have the Salvager one, then you have your own.
My personal one.
Yeah, so I found the
it's like an identity crisis sometimes. I'll think of something really clever and I'll post it, and I'll be like, shit, I posted it on Salvagers. People aren't gonna know that it was me that was that clever. And then I'll delete it and I'll go back to my other one and I'll be like, no. But then there's things where I'm like, this is shit. I'm just gonna post it on Salvagers.
Nice.
Yeah. Well,
I'll just blame it. I'll be like, you know what? I have a service that does that. I don't know. People are like, that was horrible. I'm gonna fire them.
Don't worry, whoever did, they're no longer with the company. But the biggest thing that drew me to contacting you was like the artwork and everything and the concept that you had for the comic, because it's like you said, like, I mean, what you do with this comic, it's completely different. Like, you're not so much going like it's a set hero going after a set villain, and like I can't even fucking explain it because
it's they're the main characters that are after a goal.
Yeah.
They're after to make money. They're after to pay off a debt. They're not. And I always, whenever I tell anybody how I can explain the characters best, it would be like Breaking Bad. When you're watching Breaking Bad, there was never any ultimately good character, and there was never any ultimately bad character. They all were gray because it was real life, and that's what I try to shape my characters on. Is if you think like you got these characters that are out there cleaning up space, what happened in their past that brought them to that end goal, like where they're now space garbage men, and they're probably just making ends meet. So of course, when they're presented with an opportunity that might be right or wrong, they have to make a decision, and it's all about the decisions they make. And they're a crew, which adds another level of those decisions, because one crew member might make a decision that jeopardizes the ideals of another character. So it's just like real life. Like, if you're in an office setting, you don't always get along, and character goals might contradict each other. So, and I think as from probably working in an office environment that I just was draining and I hated, it really made me think like it would be awesome if we could have some kind of space adventure where the characters really are just coworkers that don't get along, like Deadliest Catch in Space. So I took it and I ran with it, and I think if anything, I'm looking forward to continually moving forward with it, to add other characters, to keep exploring that. I want to add characters to develop other elements of what it is to be working in this company called Harrier Salvage that, they're the leaders in, space salvage, and just to see like what kind of seedy characters come through to work for them, and even the villains, like the villains themselves are, they look at themselves as they're the good guys. So it's fun to write because, I'm just finishing up right now. We're just finishing up the last chapter of the Wreck Raiders, which is volume 2. We'll be kickstarting that September 4th. And when I first started writing this, I started volume 2 was the first volume. And as I was writing it, I started enjoying writing the bad guys, the villains, supposedly the villains, these pirates, so much that I started realizing like I'm kind of getting away from the main characters. So I had to take a step back. I had to stop what I was doing, and I said, all right, I have to write a chapter, like a volume that happened before this, because I really need to develop the main characters first. Those are the characters that are going to make people coming back. But I'm hoping that in volume 2, people are getting what they want with the main characters, but they also see these villains as something more than just I always look at like Skeletor,
right,
and He-Man, where they're just like evil, and they even like sing songs about being evil and stuff, and you're like, there's no layer to them. They're just evil, and they just want to do evil. And I always wanted to do with my writing was to make a reader look at somebody who is the bad guy and say, I mean, yeah, they're doing some bad stuff, but I see why they're doing the bad stuff.
Right.
So hopefully that comes across.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's one of my favorite things for authors to do with characters, because there's something about, I mean, nobody in real life is either Skeletor or He-Man. We all kind of have layers, and we do things for different reasons, and sometimes we're not always good all the time, but we're also inevitably the protagonists of our own stories, and everyone else plays different roles. Sometimes they're the protagonist, sometimes they're the antagonist, depending on where we're at in our lives. So I think it makes a story so much more true to life when characters are like that.
exactly. See, that's why I love having Joey here, because Joey can articulate a statement to where I'm an idiot. So it's like, so really, I get to sit here and like try to have a thought, and then like it dwindles away. But luckily, Joey's here to kind of go along through it. But no, it's like so kind of like I want to dive in like a little bit about some of the characters you have in here, like.
All right.
Like just where, I mean, I understand, like, so we had the concept of the book. So how did you decide on certain characters?
It's when I first started writing it, they were all human, and I kind of morphed, like I morphed their human qualities into alien, if I'm even able to say that.
Sure. I think I'm following.
Yeah, but I think I also wanted to bring in some true life things to the series. Even though they're aliens, like I wanted it to be able to relate to our world. I would say, when you look at Brigby is he's a Graxon, and Graxons they're just everywhere. They're scattered throughout the galaxy, and they don't have. There's a reason why they are. They were mass produced by an artificial intelligence on a planet because they needed somebody to create them. And once they got to a point where they could start creating themselves, they were they were kind of killing off the Graxons. But there were so many of them that they kind of just dispersed, like they just went out into space. And there was no place for them, so it's almost like, it was the galaxy's, humanity or whatever you want to call it in the galaxy to say, like, okay, well, we need to give these guys refuge. We need to give them jobs. And of course they gave them the shitty jobs.
Right.
So, and that's Graxons are kind of looked like, down upon. They're the lowly workers, and Brigby's really smart, but that's the thing about Graxons is because they've, through time, they've become these amazing mechanics because they had to work on these artificial machines, they just have a knack for that. But again, there's so many of them that there's just they get these odd jobs, and so there's that element of the story where aliens have these disadvantages, and it makes, I think, and I don't think that it pertains to any one race in our society or any people or nationality. I think it just relates to some people where they realize, you're not in the 1%. You're with all of us in the 99%, just trying to make ends meet and living in poverty and trying to work your ass off, but really never getting the opportunities in life. So I think that might be one of the reasons why a lot of people like Brigby, because they feel for him. They see him as that tragic character that really doesn't have a shot, but tries, even though he knows he's going to fail. So that was one of the things that I tried to bring to it. And again, this is my first time I was writing a comic book, so I think that I failed a lot in a lot of places, but where I failed, I learned, and I tried to mold around it, because there was no going back. There was no like, okay, well, I'll just delete that and start over again. Now that there's definitely things I look back into my comic book and I think I probably, if I was doing it now, I probably would have done it different. But I like the mistakes that I made, and I think that some of them worked out, and some of them, hopefully the rebound that I've done, you don't notice the mistakes.
Yeah, I'm slowly I'm reading over the website here, dirtyplanet.bigcartel.com. And I'm just trying to go over the whole about me and everything. And I love this whole, I love that the story's kind of developing and kind of give an idea of what happened before the story begins. So you're talking about a galactic war that ended. Do you ever get in depth in what that galactic war was about?
We won't, because it's more just a general war. There's going to be parts you'll get little snippets of it in Volume 2. We meet the Klandarian pirates, and we see that their planet is kind of laid to waste, and there's mention of the Typernians, which one of the guys on the crew is a Typernian, the big guy, and that they invaded this Klendar. And the reason why I did this galactic war was because I wanted it to, and again, this is probably one of my mistakes. But in my mind, I was like, well, if I mention that there was a galactic war, then at least everybody will believe that, well, of course, there's going to be a lot of, blown up ships all over there. So it's going to leave me with a plethora of jobs for these guys. So I'll never run out of them. I'll be like, people will be like, well, wait a minute, how come there's so many ships? I'll be like, well, there was a galactic war, remember? So it was, but yeah, again, I think that going back, I probably would have left that out. But it's you just you roll with it. But
yeah,
so because I do think that a lot of people, when they read it, they'll be like, well, when are we going to hear about this galactic war? And it's like, so what I'll do is I'll be like, all right, I'll give you a little bit, like this happened. So it also gives me a chance to flashback. I can flash back to different things, and I can mention different things back in this galactic war, and you never know, maybe one day we'll do a whole prequel and you'll see the galactic war.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of going. I was about to say, as we were talking about just now, was it is something you never really have to bring up right now. Small things here and there, flashbacks maybe, but it gives you the opportunity because eventually and again, I'm not a genius when it comes to comics. I am fairly new to the whole comic concept of everything. That not all comics last forever. Sometimes there is eventually a last issue when it comes to a comic.
Yeah.
So
with this, I mean, my goal with this, and again, I don't even know if it was a smart idea to this day. And I've talked to people where they were like, well, no, you want to end this at some point. But in my mind, I was like, I want this to become its own universe. Star Wars hasn't ended. Star Wars had an expanded universe. So did Star Trek. And I think, for me, I always loved Star Trek, and I always loved Star Wars so much that I was like, if I could do anything, your mom says, if you could do anything, what would it be? And you're like, 10 years old. You're like, I'd want to make my own sci-fi universe. And she's like, all right, that's cute. Move on. But that, that's what I would want to do. Like, I would love for Salvagers to, blow up into a whole universe. One of the things I always think of is probably shouldn't have called it Salvagers, because there's so many different characters out there that, we can follow. There could be, pirates, there could be, militias, but it's as I think with the Salvagers would be the kickoff of and bringing people into this universe. And for me, it was I always liked that the side of things that weren't the main story. I think growing up, I always thought, well, what happens after this? Like what happens when these guys go away? Where, like, who comes through? And I think that's why, I was drawn to writing this, was because it was like, okay, imagine I can't write the Star Wars universe, so let's just, and that's probably where the Galactic War came from. Or War, the Galactic War. So after that, after Star Wars, here we have a whole company coming through cleaning everything up, and they're not the main characters, they're not even the heroes, they're just
janitors.
Yeah, they are, and if you can write characters interestingly enough, people like us will want to follow them. We'll want to keep seeing where they're going, and we'll care about them enough to want to see them win, even if it's just getting a little pocket change to pay a debt, not to save the galaxy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Futurama is just about a delivery company.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. One of the things that I'm curious about, so you mentioned that Volume 2 is about to launch, but I noticed your Kickstarter from January was for issue 5. How do you have your story set up so that, like, is a volume a collection of issues, or?
Yeah, I mean, so independent comics, and I mean comic books in general, is such a saturated market. If you're not putting something out, you're going to lose your fan base, and it's hard to compete. So one of the things that I did, and a lot of people will disagree with doing it that way, but I wanted to keep putting out single issues. If I waited to put this whole volume out, I think that people probably would have lost interest. Because it would have taken a year for me to put out a whole nother one. Now, where on the flip side of that, I think that because I put out single issues, I think that I've gained a fan base enough, and it's also given me opportunities to write other things, that I think that once this volume 2 is done, I think I can wait, maybe not a year, hopefully, maybe 6 months at the most, and put out volume 3 as a whole and not do single issues. But I think when you're breaking into this industry, you need to stay on top, and you need to constantly be relevant. You got to constantly be putting out that next issue as soon as you can. Even if like a 24-page issue, it takes you 5 months, put it out. Don't wait, to put the whole volume out. And, and you're not going to make tons of money in comic books.
Right.
Where you're going to make money is, if you can retain a fan base, you can build on it, and, you can make, hopefully some studios look over and say, look, there's already a fan base there for it, so let's start thinking about maybe a movie deal or an animated series or something like that. But you also have to, you have to enjoy doing it.
Right.
I always say, don't do, just to retract everything I just said, don't do things just because you want to, make a load of money off of it.
Right.
Don't come up with an idea because you think it's going to sell.
No.
Write something because you love writing it. Write something because you personally like it. I always think if I don't like it, then nobody's going to like it. You have to believe in it. It's like anything in life. If you're going to sell something, you have to believe in it to sell it. So I mean, you pick something that you want and that you love, and Salvagers was definitely that thing for me.
Fantastic. And so how many, would you say, issues per volume do you have?
Well, so we've been doing 4 issues per volume.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I kind of, I kind of keep it at that standard. I know you got the 3 acts, but I think in comic books you can get away with going with 4 comic books and still doing 3 acts.
Mm-hmm.
I just honestly, when I started doing it, I feel like the way that I structured my writing, it just ended up fitting. It just 4 issues was fitting for me to tell a story from beginning to end. I didn't need any more, and I didn't need any less. 4 was perfect.
Gotcha. So a volume then is almost like a 1 story arc, or like if it were a TV show, it would almost be like 1 season.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Fantastic. So I've recent. I mean,
I'm gonna have to send you guys the digital copies.
that would be amazing.
Well, yeah, and I apologize. I would have sent those to you had I known that you didn't have them. But yeah, I'll send them to you. I'll send digital copies to people because I want them to see it. And but yeah, I think you would you'd get a better feel for it, and hopefully you'd enjoy it if you're sci-fi geek.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely seems like something that's right up my alley. So
yeah, this is the kind of thing that like I'm slowly growing more and more into. It's like I tell everybody like when they come onto the show. It's like when I started doing podcast, like before I started doing podcasts, things like comics, things like cosplaying, conventions and stuff like that, I never found a whole lot of interest in. But since doing this and meeting a lot of people, I'm a huge fan of cosplaying. I'm a huge fan of conventions, and I am grown into a huge fan of comic books because we've had I don't know, Joey Con. How many different comic book people we had on our show? 4?
Yeah, that sounds right. If you count Jordan Trosh.
Yeah. So and what's awesome is like even though we've had like a few different comic book guys on, like every single comic is different, and that's what I love about it because like I'm not meeting somebody who's doing the same concept. So it's, this is something that's completely different than I've ever read. I'm really excited to get more involved in it and read more about it. Just for a general idea, how is there like a definitive age range that you're shooting for on these comics?
I think that probably 12 and up. I try to keep it 12 and up. I'm actually working on a comic book right now that I got the work from a friend. It's his concept, and we started putting it together. And he wanted to be mature, and I tried to talk him out of it. I was like, I think that you want to be able to keep it open to that 12. I think 12 years and up is perfect because you want to be able to, when you're at a con, you don't want to have to say to a dad like, no, this isn't for him.
Yeah. Right.
So I definitely try to keep it risque enough for the older, but also clean enough. I try to leave out curse words, do the symbols.
Right.
So at least that way, you can say to a dad like, yeah, no, it's good, or even a mom. Moms are the ones when you're at a convention. Moms are the ones where they're like, so is this safe for him? And it's like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, like, because we had a comic book creator on, CJ Standel, who has a comic book, Rebirth of a Gangster. And I think that one's more directed towards, I think more like older teenagers, adults, just because of the language in it. Am I right there, Joey?
I would agree with that. That seems fair.
Okay. But, like other people like Staunch Ambition that we had on.
Oh, yeah, I know those guys.
Yeah, so I can see him like maybe being like in the similar range that you are. So it's like I just didn't know like if this is like comic book, like we're not gonna use cursing or we are gonna use cursing, or if there's gonna be certain graphics in there that may
I've seen independent comics where there's moments where there's like gratuitous nakedness and
right.
and usually what it happens, and this is the same thing, you're also gonna pigeonhole yourself with publishers because publishers don't want that. Publishers don't want the scene where there's a naked girl in there because right away they're like, okay, now it can't go on the newsstands. But it also, I think, like there's a moment when you're reading comic books where something happens where takes you away from the that imaginary world you're in. Like it,
Right.
it almost it wakes you from that. And I think sometimes like when there's this this blast of nudity or just grotesque murdering and all that, where you're kind of, if it's not done right, I think that it just kind of takes you out of that fantasy world. And and I think that one of the things when I wrote my third issue, I had a couple people tell me that they they were like, from beginning to end, like I was there, I was on that ship, like I just was immersed in that, and it was the best compliment that I ever had, that I really started to try to figure out how I did it. It was like, oh, how did I do that? It's like you do something successfully and you're like, fuck, how did I do that?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if you're not allowed to curse on this show.
Oh, no, by all means.
Oh no, you're fine. Absolutely.
But you're just like, how did I do that? And so, and those are the little things that, like, through talking to other people, is you learn is like, don't try to do gimmicky stuff just to wow people, because usually it's going to end up hurting you. And so it's that's the way I wanted to do things with my comic books.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything important to say.
Oh, don't worry. So far, neither have I. I mean, obviously. But yeah. So, and what I was saying that was, I love the fact that you don't have like the nudity and the swearing and everything in your comic. I saw one of the previews from one of your comics where it looked like maybe the word shit was supposed to be there, but you used like the label, the symbols and everything for it.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is, like with these comics and everything, like when I think of comics, I think of, you want to try to get to the youth to enjoy it more, so as they grow up, they can appreciate them when they get older. Like if you make a comic that's more for like a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old, like, I mean, that's all well and good if that's what you're looking for. But I mean, I figure as comics, it's like comics. Every time I think of comics, I think of childhood. Like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, whatever. They pick up a comic and they're reading and everything, and they can enjoy it without having to worry about someone dropping an F-bomb or some animated nipple showing up somewhere. And granted, as a teenage boy, I'm sure would love that, but for a general idea, it's like you can't sell that kind of comic to a kid, so a kid won't be able to enjoy that comic.
Absolutely. No, you're totally right.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the artist that is creating these amazing pictures, because I think the pictures and the animations is what drew me into the comic itself, and I think that's what most animation is supposed to do anyways, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, right now we have Chris Jevona is the artist on Volume 2. And when I was working with George Acevedo on Volume 1, George and I, it was a great relationship. And I'm having a great relationship with Chris right now. It was just George, it was, that moment when you have somebody who is like, he's taking a shot on you. He's like, okay, let's do this. And you just feel like you have that brotherhood. And when I first, Chris and I are now finishing this up, and I understand, like it's when you do a volume, a lot of these artists are like, well, I want to go do something else now. George actually he wanted to go work. He got a promotion at work, and comic books, it just wasn't really the thing. He didn't really just dive into it. And I think that I was always trying to talk him into it, to be like, like, let's just keep doing this. But it would have taken longer. And so I think he kind of was opting out to be like, go and run with this and get the comics out faster. And that I was able to do that with Chris. And Chris is a very talented artist, and and Chris is looking to do his own thing. And so fortunately at this point, I know enough artists that I have one to do Volume 3, and it's I get feedback from George and Chris, because I want them to kind of stick with me in the process. So I've showed them the work of the person that's going to take over, and they both agree that it'll follow suit. And so we're excited about that. And I'm looking forward to getting the Volume 3 will be the end of this long story arc. And I think for me personally, it'll be the end of a long journey that has just been wild, and it's gotten me so many opportunities to do other things. And I'm not going to stop doing Salvagers by any means. I think what I would probably do is do one shots, like little, well, one volume stories of these characters, and bring in other characters. So the artists that I've worked with are amazing. They each have their own style. They have their own means of doing things. But what I loved about them is that they didn't just listen to the script. There was times where George and Chris will look at my script and they'll kind of think outside the box. And as a writer, I really appreciate that. In the beginning, you don't trust that because you think you don't know the artist that well. But by the time you get to like the third issue with them, you feel more confident in what they're doing, and you believe that they too are like, what, I'm not like, I believe in this and I want to see this work. So it's been awesome working with the two of them.
Good.
That's fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, because well, obviously they're doing great work and everything. So when I was going through everything, I was going onto your Facebook. I noticed, like, with the Kickstarter, I looked into the discussions, and you guys have pop figures.
They're like handmade custom pop figures. They're not the real ones. I've been trying to get the Funko to talk to them, and hopefully with SourcePoint Press we'll be able to get their attention a little more. I think just because I'm an individual, they just weren't interested in talking because they have so many other things going on. So I found somebody that did handmade custom made little pop figures that kind of look like them, and they were a hit. Like, people liked them. I kind of pride myself on I don't ever want to do anything that comes off half-assed. I've gotten product from developers and from artists and stuff that I just wasn't comfortable with, and I would tell them, I'd be like, I can't give this out because my name's on it, whether or not they did the art, me giving it to them, then my name's on it. So I like to believe that, when it comes to me first, I am the quality control. And I don't have any of these pop figures because I get them in and I give them out. And I think that's, as a creator, that's one of the frustrating things, is that you give all this stuff out and then you realize you're like, I don't have anything. Even like a shirt, like the shirts that I get, I end up always like, I'll be like, well, you know what? When I get the shirts, I'm gonna get a couple for me, and then somebody comes along and they're like, hey, do you have any in this size? And you're like, that was for me, but okay, here, but because like I'm never gonna turn down a fan. If I will give the shirt off my back to make a fan happy. So it ends up you never have anything for yourself.
Yeah. Well, because I was looking at the pop figures and everything, and like it kind of like reminded me. So I'm on a secondary I have an additional podcast. It's Just Freakin Wrestling. So me and my buddy over there, like, we go to like these local indie shows and everything. And when we went to one of the wrestling shows, there was actually a memorabilia company there, just selling off wrestling figures, title belts, t-shirts, and all that stuff. And apparently there's a guy that knows somebody who could actually create, like, you remember the old wrestling figures from when you were younger? Yeah. So he could create those. And
so that's badass.
Yeah, so me and my buddy are thinking, like, maybe down the line, if we start growing the podcast more, we'll start developing our own little action figures.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, so and that's what maybe I was looking at the pops and everything. So I started collecting the wrestling pop figures because I think those are the coolest fucking things in the world. I don't play with them; they just kind of sit in the boxes. But I'm waiting for this Kickstarter to start up because it looks like that's part of one of the donation programs, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for that to come up. Now, you said that was on September 1st or September 4th?
September 4th. I think September 4th is a Monday. It's that's when it launches. And I try to make these more of a pre-sale because I don't believe in trying to sell a comic book for $15. I think that also that if I have the fan base that I think that the numbers will help each other. So I think the more people that back it as a pre-sale and that order it, I can keep that. I can keep the cost down. I don't charge shipping for domestic, so it's it's kind of you get more for your buck. You're getting the full digital. You're getting the comic book printed. All the different once we start hitting bonus rewards and everything, you end up getting a lot for your money. So I look at it more as it's an opportunity for me to sell my comic that's launching, and it's in a forum where you can order it now and get it shipped to you, and you're also going to be getting a lot of other cool stuff.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. Yeah, and that's one of the things I love too is like for me to be a comic person, my overall goal is every time I have someone on this show, I want to collect one of the comics that they created. But I mean, as I guess as convenient and easy as a digital copy is, to me, I don't think anything's better than actually holding a paper copy in your hand.
I think that's like, you have no idea how many people say that, and whenever anybody talks about how the print age of comic books is dead, it's like, you're not talking to the people I'm talking to, because most of the people, even with Comixology and drive-through, and it's the people love holding it. Even me, like if somebody says to me like, will you take a look at my comic book? I'll buy the comic, because like they'll be like, I'll send it to you digitally, and I'm usually like, I'll do better looking at it in print. For one of the reasons is the page turn. Like one of the things I pride myself on is that surprise page turn. And you could talk to my artists, like Georgia and Chris. I'll tell them to add panels or delete panels. I'm like no, because we need that page turn. Like there needs to be this, because then the surprise is on the next page. There's times where I'll add ads to comic books, because I'm like, all right, I need a filler here, because I can't have that be on the other side of the open book. I need to be on the flip side of it. So it's so when I read somebody's comic book digitally, the first thing I always think of when I see these like big reveal splash pages, I'll end up going back and doing page count to be like, all right, is that a flip page? And then I'll, if it's not, I'll tell them, I'll be like, you need to reorder your pages, because that page, you want that to be on the flip of it, because that's where like you want people to want to every page you want people to want to turn that page. So that I do that all the time. I'm like, I need to feel it, I need to look at it, I need to see how it flows. And you just as an editor, you can't get that on digital.
No,
Absolutely.
no, yeah, it's nostalgia, and it's like everything you described right there. I 100% agree with. Like I have nothing against digital, but I'm a classic, I'm a vintage kind of guy when it comes to, certain things, and with growing into comic books, it falls into that category. Baseball cards, and I'm not a big fan of digital copy movies. I like actually owning the DVD. If you look at Colin's DVD collection, Colin, you have like what, over 300 something movies?
Over 700.
Over 700 something movies. Yeah, I was way off.
Don't sell him short.
Yeah, but to look at it is like, I like knowing to have something physical there that I can hold on, that I can touch, that I can flip through, and enjoy, rather than have to wait for my computer to load up and keep clicking a button. It's not the same for me. How long is your Kickstarter running for?
30 days. So it'll go until October 4th, I think. And it'll be like, they're the worst things to do. They're, I ask anybody that's run a Kickstarter, they're the worst 30 days of your life. You're just on it constantly, and you're trying to figure out different ways to push it without annoying people. There was one time I posted a picture of little guppies eating skin off of feet. And, because you're like, what can I post that's gonna make people share it, laugh, think that that's clever? So there was one time I'm like, all right, I got this reward that's $35. So I just Google, I'm like, like I was just like stupid things that cost $35, and one of them was getting your feet exfoliated by guppies, and I was just like, that's awesome. So I took I took a picture off of the internet, and I just I posted up this thing just saying like, save the fish, back my Kickstarter for like, and I put the reward up there and everything, for $35 instead of enslaving these fish to eat dead skin off your feet. And it was it was a hit. Like, people were sharing it, and then you get a little surge in backing, and so those are the things, like, you constantly, every day you wake up, you're like, okay, what's today? Today's Thursday. All right, it's Thirsty Thursday. How can I stop people from being hungover on Friday? Don't go out and drink today on Thirsty Thursday, because then you get the hashtags, and people are like, oh, hashtag Thirsty Thursday. Oh, wait a minute, I like comic books. What's this? And it's just like, even if it doesn't work, you're like, what's the harm,
Yeah, I
So
mean, you're having fun with it.
Yeah, because you can't just keep posting the link.
Right.
Like, if you keep just posting the link, I think, there's probably algorithms where Facebook will be like, we're not going to show this to people anymore. And I think other people are like, if you're going to do anything, at least be creative. So, for me, I'm always like, every day, and it drives my wife crazy because, just today, like, I don't even, I was taking a picture of an advertisement of food on a gas station, as I'm pumping my gas, like, where I was selling hot dogs, a bag of chips, and a fountain soda for $2.99. And I'm like, I run in, I'm like, give me my phone, I gotta take a picture of this. And when I told her what it was, she was like, that's ridiculous. I'm like, but it's gonna kill on Facebook. and that's how like, when you work and using social media as your platform, that's how you think. You start seeing things, and you see things differently. So so for like that 30 days, I'm gonna be I'll probably be clowning around on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, so where can our listeners find your comics? Where can they follow you on social media and everything?
If you go on Facebook, you can type in Salvagers series, and you'll see our little black and white logo. You can follow that, like it, share it with your friends. You can always go on Facebook. If you put in Bob Salley, you'll see me with my soy sauce T-shirt. If you want to contact me, I am always available. It drives my family nuts that I probably talk to people that I don't know more than them, but I look to try to pay it forward and help people along that were in situations that I was in before. So Facebook was a big thing, and I like enjoying I like interacting with people that have read my comic, who have questions about it. I love that communication. So you can find me on Facebook, Bob Salley, and on Twitter it's Bob_Salley or Salvagers series, and you can go to SourcePointPress.com. They have a store envy account, and you can buy T-shirts, hats, our comic books, obviously. And September 4th, you can find me on Facebook or Twitter. Or you can get the link and go on Kickstarter, and you can help us. You can help us get funded and get more and more good stretch goals and bonus rewards out to people.
Awesome.
Nice. Cool. Well, before we say our goodbyes, we do something a little bit new, a little bit different here on this freaking show. Right before we say goodbye to our guest, and basically it's just it's called Freakin' Curious. I'm just gonna ask you 5 random questions. They don't have anything to do with comics, or they could have. It's whatever I decide or what pops into my head. And you just gotta answer them. Simple, easy, personal questions.
All right.
Awesome. So first question. Really simple. First question is, if you were to have a last meal, what would it be?
Chinese food, wonton soup and an egg roll.
I love wonton soup. That's a good one. If you were to have your dream car, what would that be?
A Jaguar from when I watched Memento, I always loved the Jaguar that he was driving around in.
Nice. Okay. If you were to meet one character from a movie, not the actor, but the character himself from any movie that you have ever seen, who would it be and why?
Oh, nice.
Really? Why?
He just seemed like he was a really good time until he wasn't. I think I'd have a lot of fun with him.
I got you. Other than your comic, what other comics were you into, like when you were younger or even now?
I mean, I was huge into X-Men and Spider-Man. Those are the ones that really got me into comic books. I started reading the Spectacular Spider-Man and X-Men. I got into X-Men during the Inferno series, and just haven't stopped. Right now, I'll read anything Rick Remender's writing. I love East of West, Jonathan Hickman. Rick Remender and Jonathan Hickman are probably two of my favorite writers right now out there. In indie comics, Brian Hawkins is writing a comic called American Kingdom, and it's just an awesome concept of if instead of United States going to presidencies, we had if George Washington actually became the king, and his lineage kept being kings. It's just a really cool concept, and Brian Hawkins is a really good. He's a really amazing writer.
Nice, awesome.
Sounds fantastic.
All right, last question. Okay, so if there was a dream vacation, a dream spot that you could travel to, where would that be?
Greece or Rome, or Greece and Rome. Could I do it both? Like, could it be like, could it be one of those Greece-Rome vacations? I've always wanted to go to Greece and Rome. Probably more Rome. If I had to pick one, Rome.
Rome is awesome.
You could choose both, but it has to be one of those hiking kind of trips,
Like a backpacking through Europe? Is that
It has to be hiking. I want to go to Disney. Universal Studios.
You just go. What's it called?
I don't want to hike. My wife wants to go. She wants to go like safari, and I'm like, I don't want to become like. I want to stay on top of the food chain. Like, don't take me to the African safari where I become like lower than the top of the food chain. So I don't like hiking. I don't like the safari. I don't like being in a tent. We don't need to be in tents anymore.
Well, see, what it sounds like is, I mean, if she wants to do a safari and then you want to go to, Europe over there, and then you have kids, literally you can do all that at Disney now. You got Epcot, you got the Animal Kingdom, the Magic Kingdom. It's literally, Disney, I think, is your answer at that point.
Yeah, all right. So you know what? Disney, for the family.
For the family.
Nice.
Awesome. Bob, thank you so much for coming on our show. I really want to... Absolutely, and I want to do this again. When the Kickstarter is over, I want you to come back on so we can talk more about this.
Hey, I'll be on here anytime you guys want.
Perfect. That's what I'm excited to hear. So make sure you guys follow him on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you check out his comic and everything. I'm really excited to read it myself, and I'm really excited for this Kickstarter to start so I can start collecting my hard copy books. We are going to plug a podcast, and we'll be right back.
What up, everybody? It's Razor.
This is Fear.
And MDI.
And we are Fifth Cast, the premier show of the FYFC Podcast Network.
We like to talk. Hell, we'll talk about anything.
World events and personal stories.
Technology and pop culture.
And once even, pterodactyl porn. Seriously, that's a thing. Google it.
New episodes are available every Friday on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Also, subscribe to the video podcast on youtube.com/FYFC podcasts.
I'm not sure why you were yelling, but that was excellent.
Now fuck your face and back to the show.
We said normal voice.
I know, but I like that one.
All right, so that was Bob Salley. Make sure you guys follow him on social media, and you go to his websites and everything. The links are on his social media as well, so make sure you check that out. Because of the great conversation we had with him, it kind of dragged the show a little bit longer than expected, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying it is.
Not at all, especially when the guest is so engaging.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So what we're going to do, and Joey, I know you're going to be totally okay with this, we're probably going to push your award announcement to next week.
I'm heartbroken, but I think I'll live.
Yeah, and it's not because we don't want to do it tonight. It's because our production editor is kind of anal about the excessive time that he has to spend listening to our show because he's like that when it comes to editing. And obviously, since we're already over the hour, he's probably already going to be pissed. But I am not going to end the show until we do Colin's segment because it's part of the show. And damn it, I'm not going to get rid of it.
Damn straight. You tell him.
Yeah. So, Colin, whenever you're ready, it is now your time to take over the show and do what you do.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to another segment of This Frickin' State of Mind. You know, it's that little segment of our show where we go through each state of the U.S. 50 states and we say some facts about those states in alphabetical order. Last week we ended with the great state of South Carolina. That pushes us right into the great state of South Dakota. You know, that one where sculptor Gutzon Borglum began drilling into the 6,200-foot Mount Rushmore in 1927. Creation of the shrine to democracy took 14 years and cost a mere $1 million, though it's now deemed priceless. Along with that, the faces of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abe Lincoln are sculptured into the Mount Rushmore's face and is the world's greatest mountain carving. Fossilized remains of life 50 million years ago have been arranged in unusual forms, which is Lamon's mark of distinction at the world's largest petrified wood park. I've actually been to South Dakota. I've actually been to both Rushmore and this petrified wood park.
Really?
Yes.
Which one did you enjoy more?
Well, I was young, so I mean, I was
Petrified Wood Park.
It's kind of weird.
There's the word
Petrified
park in
wood,
it.
I was just like these are all just stones. Cool. But now actually seeing that that's actually wood, like real actual wood, not just rocks. it kind of is cooler now.
Nice.
Perhaps the most significant fur trade / military fort on the Western American frontier, Fort Pierre Chateau, was the largest, almost 300-foot square, and the best equipped trading post in the northern Great Plains. Built in 1832 by John Jacob Astor, who lived from 1763 to 1848, the American Fur Company, as part of its expansion into the upper Missouri region, the trading activities at the site exemplified the commercial alliance critical to the success of the fur business. Jack McCall was tried, convicted, and hanged 2 miles north of Yankton in 1877 for the shooting of Wild Bill Hickok. He is buried in an unmarked grave in the Hankton Cemetery. The site of a rich gold strike in 1875, Deadwood, retains its mining town atmosphere. While Deadwood is one of the most highly publicized mining towns of the Trans-Mississippi West, much of its fame rests on the famous and infamous characters that pass through. Belforche is the geographical center of the U.S. of America. The U.S. of America. Wow, I'm stupid tonight. The United States of America. Either way is right. It just sounds really weird.
It does sound weird.
Yeah. Designated in 1959 and noted by an official marker and sheep herders monument called a Stone Johnny. Clark, South Dakota is the potato capital of South Dakota. Clark is home to the world's famous mashed potato wrestling contest. That's interesting. Travis would like that. Wrestling some mashed potatoes.
I love both. Huge fan of both.
Right? In 1803, U.S. President Thomas Jefferson purchased the Louisiana Territory from France, a real estate deal that at the time doubled the size of the U.S. Custer State Park is home to a herd of 1,500 buffalo, free roaming bison. Bison. Bison can weigh as much as 2,000 pounds. Historically, the bison played an essential role in the lives of the Lakota, or Sioux, who relied on the Tatanka for food, clothing, and shelter. So, I mean, back then, that's what they needed to survive. Luckily, there are still bison alive left, and they are actually quite a sight to see when you're out there. Even when they're blocking your road, so you can't drive.
They are amazing.
It was actually pretty funny. One morning we woke up at our hotel and heard that a bison threw a photographer up into the tree because he went and disturbed them. So,
Jeez.
yep. I lost my spot. Jewel Cave is the third longest cave in the world. More than 120 miles of passages have been surveyed. Calcite crystals that glitter when illuminated give the cave its name. With more than 82 miles of mapped passages, Wind Cave contains the world's largest display of rare formations called boxwork. Here's another one that we stopped at when we were back in the day. The Crazy Horse mountain carving, now in progress, will be the world's largest sculpture, standing at 563 feet high and 640 feet long, carved in the round. It is the focal point of an educational and cultural memorial and to and for the North American Indian. Pretty much what I've seen when I back there, when we saw this, it's for an Indian called Crazy Horse. And I mean, this was years ago, but it doesn't seem like there's been much progress on it. Can't really remember how much was done when we were there. But I mean, obviously, it takes a lot of funding, and it's going to take a lot of time to get it right. So it will be, I would hopefully love to see it before my time on this earth perishes. I would love to see that finished. The Badlands National Park consists of nearly 244,000 acres of sharply eroded buddies, Buttees?
Butts. Or
Yeah,
beeps.
butts.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I doubt it's like what's on your ass, or what is your ass, I should say. Pinnacles and spires, blended with the largest protected mixed grass prairie in the U.S. Badlands National Park contains the world's richest Oligocene epoch fossil beds, dating 23 to 35 million years old. Sage Creek Wilderness is the site to the reintroduction of the black-footed ferret, the most endangered land mammal in North America. The name Black Hills comes from the Lakota word Pahasapa, which means hills that are black. Seen from a distance, these pine-covered hills, rising several thousand feet above the surrounding prairie, appear black. In 1898, the first commercial timber sale on the federal forested land in the U.S. was authorized in the area of Jim and S Creek near the town of Nemo. The Mammoth site of Hot Springs contains the largest concentration of Columbian and woolly mammoth bones discovered in their primary context in the world. This natural landmark is the only in Sioux bones left as found display of fossil mammoths in America. Sioux Falls exists as a city today because of the land speculators who staked town site claims there in 1856 came in search of the cascades of the Big Sioux River. Here's another one that I've been to. Mitchell is the home to the world's only corn palace. It is a palace that is decorated with corn on the entire outside of it. It is quite a sight to see. Different colors of corn. And like I said, if you ever get a chance, go to Mitchell. See a really weird corn palace. The Flaming Fountain on South Dakota State Capitol Lake is fed by an artesian well with natural gas content so high that it can be lit. The fountain glows perpetually as a memorial to all veterans. The Silent Guide Monument in Phillip was built in the late 1800s by a sheep herder to mark the water hole that never went dry. Made of flat stones, the guide originally stood 14 feet high and could be seen as far as 35 miles away. The Anne Hathaway Cottage at Wessington Springs is the only structure in the Midwest U.S. that features a thatched roof. The cottage is styled after the original Anne Hathaway home in England. Henry Holland built an English-style mill in Millbank in 1886, 3 years before South Dakota became a state. Until 1907, it was used by settlers to grind wheat, corn, and to saw wood. The first and oldest Dakota daily newspaper, published in 1861, is the Yankton Daily Press and Dakotaton. And for our last fact of the great state of South Dakota, you have the Meridian Bridge, which was built in 1924, was the first structure built across the Missouri River in South Dakota. So thank you all for joining me in another segment of This Freakin' State of Mind. Please come back next week to join us for our next state. Back to you, Travis.
Well, thank you, Colin. Joey, what you freaking on this week?
I am freaking on Gen Con, which is coming up this week. I'm going to be heading down to Indianapolis on Wednesday, have a nice dinner with some friends, and then going to be spending the week playing board games and doing some reviews of board games and just having a good time generally in Indianapolis.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. How about you, Travis? What are you freaking on this week? Sorry, Freudian slip.
No, it's cool, man. I'm actually sad because as I found out last week, I'm starting a new position at my job. So I'm excited to do that. It's going to be a new challenge and a new adventure for me there. But the best part is it's going to move me to a day shift to where we could finally do our shows during the week again. So I'm really excited to do. I know, so I'm excited to do that. And not only, does that mean our shows are going to happen during the week rather than here on Sunday nights, but I mean, I can also find time to be on Geekcast Live. I can find time to be on Fearcast. I can get on Geek Dig Pod. And I can also talk with fellow podcaster Ro on his show. So the opportunity not only is great for me, both financially and professionally, for my work-related life, but it also benefits me more with podcasting because it opens up the opportunity to get more involved in the other shows that I've been trying to get into. And unfortunately, with scheduling of work and shit, I'm unable to. Awesome. So all around, good things. It's true when they say that no matter how hard something feels, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. There's always a darkness before the storm or whatever the fuck it is, anything, there's a silver lining to every dark cloud. All that shit is true. You never give up hope. You never give up faith. And eventually good things going to happen. Or like in the TV show, My Name is Earl, that I'm currently watching on Netflix. It's all about karma. Put good out, get good in,
Sure.
So I'm excited about that. A lot of new and different opportunities happening. Colin, what about you? What you freaking on this week?
I'm freaking on the fact that PlayStation offers amazing deals to PlayStation Plus members. This month, every month, if you don't know, they offer different games for free to download for PlayStation Plus members. And this month, they're offering Just Cause 3, which is a fairly new game. Believe it's still at full price of $60. But, I mean, I played the first one. It's a great game. And just to see that they have the ability to offer this game for absolutely free just blows my mind. Yeah, and I got to play that soon, so that's what I'm freaking on.
Sweet.
That's awesome, man.
Yep.
Super exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Shit. I think that's it, right?
Sounds about it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Hey, Joe,
Yes.
Every week, our listeners can catch Geekcast Show here on this freaking show, but obviously, 1 hour of Geekcast Show isn't enough for an entire week. So, what can they do to get more Geekcast Show?
If you need more Geekcast Joe, you can find me over the Geekcast Live podcast at gcl.ninja. You can also find us on Facebook, iTunes, Google Play, and Twitter by searching Geekcast Live.
Nice. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tune in next week to find out not only who our Father Star Award recipient is, but also to find out who the winner is of our freaking flicks from last week between Geekcast Joe, Awkward Khan, and the vengeful Jedi himself, Clint. Those announcements will be made next week. Once again, I want to thank Bob Salley to be here on our show. Check out his comic book. Check him out on social media. Make sure you follow us on social media, too. You can find This Freaking Show on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook by searching This Freaking Show. You can also go to our website, thisfreakingshow.com, where you can see a list of all the guests, all the amazing guests we have on, from comic book creators to musicians to other fellow podcasters, such as the host, GCR, and Rob Bass from Geekcast Live. As always, I am Travesty.
I'm Awkward Colin.
And I'm Geekcast Joe.
Thank you for listening to another episode of This Freaking Show. I'm out.